Hello, Cornerstone. It is Tuesday, May 5th. I am Pastor Jeff, and this is the Daily. I want to take a moment and thank everyone once again for joining us for church this past Sunday, whether that was in person or online. This Sunday, it will be much of the same. We'll have the sign up. We will have approximately space for 100 people. We'd ask for you to please sign up. And we'll also make the service available via the live stream. And then we will give you an edited version of the service a few hours after it is completed. And when I say edited, it'll just be a little more polished, and you won't have to worry about some of the buffering issues and things when you watch it live. So you can plan on that this week. Well, I am very excited to announce that we are going to return to something old, but we haven't been doing it since the pandemic hit, and that is a return to the Lord's Supper. We will participate in that this week. We're going to do it in such a way that we'll try to prevent the spread of germs. It'll be different, just the procedure than what you're used to. You'll arrive on Sunday. We'll have our worship, the word, and after the sermon, of course, we'll participate in the Lord's Supper, and we will instruct you in the particulars once you get there. But really, really looking forward to participating in the Lord's Supper this Sunday with many of you. Hey, I want to just quickly talk to you parents with young kids. I know some of you are struggling with whether or not to come back to church because of kids and the fact that little guys, little gals, they can be a little rambunctious, especially when you're sitting in a worship service for an hour to an hour and 20 minutes. And we just want you to know we would welcome you. We would welcome your kids. We'd welcome the screams. We would lovingly and patiently just endure, if that's the right word. We'd love to have you and your kids this Sunday. So please don't feel like you would be unwelcomed. We know that we're not able to provide nursery right now and children's ministry for young kids, and that makes it difficult on young families. We also want you to know that we're working behind the scenes to come up with the best plan to do that. There's a lot of variables there. And really, as we're in this phase one of the reopening, it's difficult to provide children's ministry, especially because you can only have groups of 10 or less without the physical distancing. That being said, it will be much easier for us to provide children's ministry and nursery once we hit phase two, and those groups that do not need to be physically distanced, that gets bigger. Lord willing, 30, 40, 50 people at a time, and that'll just practically make children's church and nursery so much easier. But again, in the meantime, young families, we'd love to have you. I want to also just thank everyone for their continued cooperation on Sunday and just the spirit of wanting to worship the Lord, gather together as his people, but at the same time, love one another by keeping our germs to ourselves and just practicing the physical distancing guidelines that have been set forth. This Sunday, we're going to ask you to just help us to continue to participate in those guidelines. We especially want you to be mindful before and after the service. Before the service, it's tempting to get together and start congregating, whether it be in the foyer or even in the sanctuary. Same thing goes for after church. And we need to just be diligent to make sure that we keep those groups of people to 10 or less. That's really difficult in the foyer because you can have, 5, 6, 7 people there in the foyer, maybe greeting, ushering, visiting, and then the Romans family shows up and there's 6 of us, and all of a sudden there's 15, 20 people in the foyer, and that's really not intentional by any of us, I'm sure, to disregard the guidelines. But we especially need to be mindful that when we come to church, it's best to go get seated in the sanctuary, visit with those around us from our seats, and then when the service is over, we need to be dismissed by rows, and you're welcome to fellowship and visit once you exit the doors of the church. It's been beautiful lately, and it's been really conducive to that. But as we plan for the future, and we are planning now, we're making steps to be able to provide 2 services as soon as we need them here in the coming weeks, once more of you feel comfortable coming back to church. But we're definitely going to need to be able to exit the sanctuary, get it cleaned up and Lysoled down, if you will, dried, and then have time for the next service to come in. So, from a practical standpoint, you would really help us out to be mindful of those things that we're putting in place, and just continue in that spirit of cooperation, so that way we can continue to meet, be healthy, and enjoy the fellowship of one another. Thanks, guys. Hey, lastly today, I want to remind you of some beautiful biblical truths. For the last several months, I've been taking our staff at church through the Belgic Confession in our devotional time during our staff meetings. And I, for the foreseeable future, would like to read some of the Belgic Confession to you. We don't hold to every single article of the Belgic Confession, but a good 98% of it. And whether or not we get through that 98% in the days ahead, I don't know. But in the meantime, be encouraged with Article 1 from the Belgic Confession. Listen to these beautiful words. We all believe in our hearts and confess with our mouths that there is a single and simple spiritual being whom we call God, eternal, incomprehensible, invisible, unchangeable, infinite, almighty, completely wise, just, and good, and the overflowing source of all good. We do serve an incredible God, and we confess these things along with many other believers all across the globe who confess these beautiful biblical truths about our great God. Hey, have a blessed day in Christ. This has been The Daily. I will be back with you tomorrow. I'm supposed to be with you all week this week. We'll be checking in with the Belgic Confession, and I will have more info as it becomes available regarding our service and future services. Again, God bless. Have a wonderful day in Christ. We'll see you tomorrow.